Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the October 23rd, 2019 meeting of the Boyle County Planning and Zoning Commission. Thank you for your presence. Appreciate you being here, taking interest in business of planning and zoning. We'll begin with prayer. God and Father in heaven, we thank you for this most beautiful day and all the blessings of it. We thank you for this community we live in. We thank you for this country we live in. Thank you for the safety and protection and freedoms that we enjoy. Pray for our servicemen and women to continue to bless the country, protect them, let those conflicts be resolved, bring them home to their loved ones as soon as possible. We pray that we make decisions this day will be for betterment for all involved and for the betterment of our community. Continue to watch over and care for us, guide, guard, direct us, and all that. First item on the agenda is to approve minutes September 25th, 2019. Need a motion. Jeff moves we approve. Susie seconds. Question, discussion on motion to approve minutes 2019 September 25. Hearing none, all in favor? Unanimous, one abstention. I'll abstain voting on that, please. Next item C is the audit presentation for Kerbal Roads and Butler, which furnishes our audit.
Good morning. I'm Chad Robinson with Kerbal Roads and Butler. Craig and I met with the budget committee a few weeks ago and went over the audit report in detail and went over any questions they had at that time. So I'll be brief with this presentation. First of all, the audit went good. We reported an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion, which you can see on page 2 of the report. The only other item that I'll point out is actually in the back on page 17. That's the budgetary comparison schedule. I really wanted to point out here, kind of gives you the overall outlook of how the commission did for the year. You came in over budget on revenues, which is a good thing. You brought in more money than you expected. That was primarily related to zoning permits. And then you also came in under budget on expenses. So on both areas you came in on the positive, and that put the commission with an overall excess of revenues over expenditures of $8,684, which is a good thing. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to go over anything in more detail. But that's what I'll leave it with you unless you have questions.
Questions? No discretionary issues?
No, we didn't have any issues. The only thing that really comes up is segregation of duties, and that's just the limited number of employees. You see that in all kinds of small government environments. So that's being mitigated significantly with the addition of McDaniel Wealth Management doing the accounting services, but there's still, just a limited number of employees. That's the only thing that we see.
Any other questions, comments, discussion? Shortly on. Hearing none, we need a motion. So moved. Jeff moves we approve. Second. And Steve seconds. Question, discussion on the motion to approve the audit. Hearing none, all in favor? Vote unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Item D, financial report for September.
I'll keep it brief too. It's in your packet right behind the audit, I believe. And just what kind of piggyback on what Chad just said. We did our beginning balance that we roll into the budget at about 82,000 some change. Obviously, since the revenues performed higher and the audit then confirms that, we'll do a budget amendment some point in the future, and we'll adjust that 82,000 number by about $4,000 to compensate for that additional revenue that came in the fourth quarter, and naturally they'll probably just roll down into those escrow accounts. Won't point anything else out on the finance report or the balance sheet. It's in your packet, but I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Questions on the financial report? Susie moves we approve. Jeff seconds. Question, discussion on the motion to approve. Hearing none, all in favor? Unanimous. Item E, construction sureties.
Again, every month, this is a courtesy document, and last month, we spent a little bit of detail talking about the projects, and there was a suggestion I contact a couple construction companies here in town, and I did that. The city actually made some progress as far as getting quotes, so we're looking good to get those 2 projects hopefully done this fall. But I did contact some other companies and worked with the city a little bit more this month, and that would be the Maple Tree and the Center Estates project. So hopefully we'll get those things built, and then we can report to you at a future time that those are finished and we're ready to pay out the funds.
We need a motion on that, Steve.
No, that's just a, no, sir.
Item F, subdivision approvals. Number 1, Theo Lance Cotton subdivision, 143 Salt River Road.
This month, we're going to let Lisa, just so you know, we'll start with it. Lisa redlines the plats every month before technical review. She does all the legwork, takes them in, takes applications, then we work on them together. This month, we did not have technical review for some issues with some folks getting there with fall break and whatnot. So today is, we technically have to give each plat, if you see fit, preliminary and final approval. It needs both, since we did not have the technical review meeting. And then the red line plats, Lisa prepared, and since we never got to technical review, we thought it would be more appropriate if she presented those this month, one by one. And I'm going to flip through the slides as we go through the plats. If you have any questions, we can both answer them, though.
Okay. Theo Cotton and Lance Cotton have applied for approval of a subdivision on a tract of land containing approximately 1.740 acres located at 143 Salt River Road, Danville. It's zoned AR1, and this plat is off conveying from Theo Cotton a .737 acre tract to then combine it with Lance Cotton's 1.003 acre tract, creating a 1.740 acre parcel along the northwest intersection of 150 Perryville Road and Salt River Road. The plat's technically correct and requires both preliminary and final approval today.
Steve, on those, do we need to vote twice for preliminary?
No, I think you can vote once, given the preliminary and final. You are vested with that authority anyhow, and then we give that to the technical review. So I think you guys can vote on that. And on all the plats, the surveyors, engineers are all here. If you guys have any technical questions for Kendall, Dale, or Nancy.
Questions or discussion? Jeff moves we approve.
Second.
Jim seconds. Question, discussion on the motion to approve. Hearing none, all in favor? Unanimous. 2, Bruce Donna Helm subdivision tract, 25.950 acres, 0 Hayes Lane, Danville.
This property is zoned general residential, and this plat creates tract 4D, that's 25.7 acres, and combines it with an existing tract 4C to create tract A at 25.95 acres. It also creates and conveys tract 4E at 1.857 acres, same being an approximate 50-foot access strip to Hayes Lane to be combined with the adjacent land of Donna Helm. The plat's technically correct and will require both preliminary and final approval today.
Susie moves we approve. Wendy seconds. You, Wendy? Okay. Wendy seconds. Question, discussion on the motion to approve. Hearing none, all in favor? Vote unanimous. Number 3, David Charles Janice Randall, Will Stafford subdivision of tract of land, 84.184 acres, 0 Lancaster Road.
All right, this property is zoned agricultural residential, and this plat is creating tract 2 at 84.826 acres from the Stafford land and combines it with tract 1, which is 90.649 acres of Stafford. The plat is technically correct and requires preliminary and final approval today.
approve.
Jim moves we approve.
Second.
Steve seconds. Question, discussion on the motion to approve. Hearing none, all in favor? It's unanimous. Item 4, Danville Development Partners LLC, subdivision tract, 36.588 acres, 0 Fairville Road.
This property is zoned neighborhood center residential and commercial. And this plat is the fourth amendment to the Sigwall property plat. It seeks to modify property lines and other issues within tracts 1 and 4. The plat required minor technical corrections and will need both preliminary and final approval today.
I'm gonna add one thing on that too. This one was tabled from last month or pulled. This is Morning Point right here, and this is the dialysis clinic. This is Cunningham and Perryville Road. Sunrise is back here. This is all in one property ownership, and Morning Point's got a site plan that was on the agenda, back off the agenda, ready to go for an expansion, and we have to get the plat correct first. So the original plan was to do a smaller track here, and what this developer's doing in cooperation with Morning Point is creating this parcel for the expansion, and then this track will sort of still belong to them in the future. That site plan is literally sitting in our office, has been paid, but was not put on the agenda for this month. It's a fairly large expansion because we wanted to make sure the plat worked, and they were working through some boundary lines and some sewer issues, and the architect's still tweaking some stuff on the plan. So you should see the site plan next month, but the plat needed to come first, but that's going to be the footprint potentially of the new Morning Point expansion right there on the right part of that plat. And it removes some undeveloped right-of-way also on that old plat.
Susan moves to approve.
Second.
Steve seconds. Question, discussion on the motion to approve. Hearing none, all in favor? Vote unanimous. Item 5, Donald and Tracy Whitaker, subdivision 144.460 acres, that's 0 Lower Salt River Road and 0 Quirks 1 Road.
This property is zoned agricultural residential, and the plat seeks to divide the Whitaker property that runs along Quirks Road and Lower Salt River Road. It's dividing it into 16 tracts. 2 of the tracts are under 1.5 acre, 2 tracts are just under 5 acre, and the remaining tracts range from 5 acres to 23 acres. The plat needs minor technical correction and is ready for preliminary and final approval today.
I'll add one more thing on this, just because I thought it was interesting. I don't know how I saw the Willie Baker ad for this auction, but I did. And this is actually going to auction soon. And this is it's being divided in 16 tracts, but it's going to be auctioned in various combinations. As you guys know, these big auctions go. So the ad I saw was interesting because it says these are the tracts, but they can be offered in different combos. And what typically happens is we do preliminary approval, and these may be bought in different combinations, and we may have to come back and reconsolidate some of these lots or recreate them based on the way the auction goes. So I saw that ad, and that auction's coming up pretty quick. And but this is the preliminary division, and they might sell that way. They might end up selling 10 different ways. That's just part of that. But you guys might note that area. Some of those 1 acres might be combined with those 5 or 10s. And we'd have to bring it back to you if they change.
We've, Kirk's Run, that goes from 150 to 68 in Mercer County, is actually a state highway. And it is not we've tried to get the state out there for about 2 weeks to make sure that we cannot get an entrance permit, but we used to be able to get what was called a preliminary entrance permit, and then whoever bought each track went and got the formal permit. It's my understanding that we can't do that anymore, but however, Robert Baker is coming out to check the sightline distance, because we don't want to create a track that you cannot get an entrance in. So he's actually told me that he's going to come out this afternoon. We've been trying to get him for a couple weeks, and of course everybody's busy, but the only track that I might see that would have a problem would be track 3. So if that is the case, what we would do would just be combine track 3 and 4. So instead of 16 tracks, it'll be 15. I don't think there will be a problem with track 3, but I just wanted to let you know that, so if there is, that track will be combined with 3 and 4 will become 1.
So Dale, planning wise, would every one of these lots have a connection to Quirks or Salt River?
Yes, they all join on Kirks River or Kirks Run or Salt River Road, one or the other.
Each would have a driveway?
Yes. There'll be no easements across any of them for driveway purposes. There's about 7 of them that already has existing entrances.
Any other questions, discussion?
Move for approval.
Jim moves we approve. And second, question, discussion on the motion to approve. Hearing none, all in favor? Looks unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. Item 6, Christopher and Linda Spears, subdivision, 4.594 acres, 0 Henry Street, Junction City.
This property being in Junction currently has no zoning classification, and the plat seeks to divide a portion of the Spears property fronting on Henry Street. It divides the property into 2 tracts and combines 1 tract with the remaining property of Spears. Technical corrections are required, and the plat requires both preliminary and final approval today.
We need a motion regarding technical corrections.
No, we don't.
This says track 182 is non-conforming.
Is this where his business is? Is this where his business is?
Yes, the existing building there that you see is where they almost always that's the business there.
And I think what Commissioner Baird's alluding to too, it does say non-conforming and there's setbacks, but currently in Junction City, there are no zoning rules in place. So technically, none are non-conforming, and there are no platted setbacks or required. The developer's still free to put setbacks on the plat. That's independent, but there would be no non-conforming note needed at this point in time. Once the zoning gets back in place, which we're getting closer, that would be non-conforming. So the note could be helpful in the future, but it's not actually required right now. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because you can't have anything non-conforming if there's no zoning rules in place.
Clarify why we're even considering.
We do, all plats still have to come through your all's approval. When Junction City came back, the subdivision regulations are back in play, which means all platting comes through you all. But the notes on the plat that relate to zoning, there's no zoning, so those notes are really non-applicable at this time. But as soon as the zoning comes back, if you were to pull this plat and go, hey, how come there's not a note about zoning or setbacks? It's because in this window, this plat came through when there was no legal rules for zoning or setbacks. We're meeting Thursday. Again, there's a committee, and we're walking through the new ordinance page by page, and everything looks good so far. Hopefully the first year, maybe March, just getting it through. We have to bring it through a hearing here, And I think they're ready to vote on it, and that would take 2 months, or 2 readings. But so far, every page of the new zoning ordinance they've been in line with, and we're meeting Thursday again at 5 to walk through chapter 5. Yes, sir.
If there were zoning, what issues would we have?
Well, we'd have a non-conforming structure that needs a note on the plat because it doesn't meet the setbacks, if we had setbacks. And that note then would be a typical note we'd put on the plat about non-conformities. And it just puts someone on notice that that building does not meet the current zoning setbacks if we had them. And then we'd also have the zoning name on the plat and maybe some other stuff related to the zoning ordinance.
But it would be grandfathered in.
It is, and that's what the note is attempting to do, is let somebody know that this building doesn't meet the current rules. So we put non-conforming notes on a lot of plats. It's grandfathered in, but it makes it official on the plat. And the setback that they've shown on that, again, is fine, and a developer can meet the standard or make it deeper if they choose. And so the setback is no problem for us, but the non-conforming note just not appropriate or not really needed at this point in time.
We just made the setbacks consistent with the other setbacks as the other laws.
Yep, exactly.
Any other questions? Hearing none, need a motion?
I have issues passing something through planning and zoning. It doesn't-
Well, but the plat process is required to come through you.
But there's no zoning.
Well, that's what we've done about 3 plats now, I think.
Why can't we wait until the zoning until we address it?
Well, because the subdivision regulations are in play today, you can't, they have to run the plat through technical review and through the planning commission. And
Can we put any restrictions on them?
I think you can do whatever you want, sure. You guys can add conditions onto the plat or some reasonable notes, but the plat, when we bring a plat in, it ties into lots of other rules, whether it be floodplain, setbacks, easements, utilities. So depending on what all those other rules are, the plat reflects what those other rules are. In this case, there is no zoning ordinance, so there's no need for the zoning verbiage, but there's still requirements for easements, drainage, if it was applicable. So the plat's still important, and it's trying to convey as much information as we can. There's no zoning at this time to convey. But there will be shortly.
And the whole purpose of this plat is Chris and Linda Spears is selling off almost Amish business. And the tract that you can barely see to the far south that Chris and Linda own, that tract was created several years ago, and it has about 50 foot of road frontage on Highway 300. But where that road frontage is, there's a pond that is about 70 foot wide, and it takes up the entire road frontage. So they do not want to basically landlock themselves. So that's the reason for this plat. The reason for it is to cut off the little L-shaped tract there that you see, so that will give them frontage out on Henry Street for their property back in the back. This plat has nothing to do with the zoning aspect of it. Basically, this is just a subdivision plat, and we have to put on there that there's no zoning enforced in Junction City right now. Correct?
Correct. There's a hard line between zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations. The latter we can still enforce. Moreover, we have to. The statutes say that we can't record a plat that creates a subdivision without your approval. So that's why we're handling this.
May I ask a question?
Yeah. Just stand up, please. Yeah, thank you.
In 2004, when the zoning ordinance was approved, Junction City was included there. They withdrew after that. So why aren't they, like everybody else, under the 2004 zoning ordinance?
Because of the litigation that they underwent to withdraw from that planning unit, there's a court order that says that they have withdrawn from it and that the zoning ordinance no longer applies. We're in the process of bringing them back in and undoing the work from that.
You've answered my question. Thank you.
And we as surveyors, we have done some, just recently, some tracks in Junction City, and they're all the same way. With the subdivision regulations, just, we don't know what the zoning is right now, so that's, you know, there's nothing that we can do to improve the situation until it gets there.
Any other questions or discussion? Susie has moved, we approve. Wendy seconds. Question, discussion on the motion to approve. Hearing none, all in favor? Vote unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. Item G is public hearing, LMD Holdings LLC, AFI 005 LLC, filed future land use map amendment for low density to mixed use employment on tract of land containing 272.251 acres at 1695 Lancaster Road and 871 East Main Street and 867 East Main Street and 80 Old Lancaster Road, Danville.
Thank you. First, I want to start telling Lisa, good job. That was excellent. And now you guys all get to experience what technical review is every month. And we welcome you to attend. So this is a future land use map amendment. And again, that's something new to this community over the last couple years. You should have a staff report in your packet, and I'll refer to that and mention the page numbers at the bottom where I'm going to show some slides. Also, and I think most of the folks here in the audience, the applicants are here. There's other folks here that I think are going to want to speak on this, so I'm going to keep mine pretty brief, and you know that's unique for me. But I am going to roll through this pretty quick and show you some stuff, and be glad to answer any questions from you or the audience or anyone else. Page 1, the staff report, I'm just going to go over some technical things. The application was filed on October 2nd, 2019. As you heard, the applicant's LMD Holdings and AFI 005 LLC. The location of the property, you heard that. The current flume designation is low density, and the property size is 272 acres, 251. And with that, I'm going to jump to some slides up here that you guys may want to look at. I went out and took some pictures when I put the signs out on the property. And so this is Lancaster Road from the east. Got some more folks coming in here. So that picture's looking from the east of the property. We're further out Lancaster Road, away from town, again, looking west. And you can see the rock wall on the right, and this is the farm. This is moving back in towards town, another piece, again, moving to the west, looking at the farm to the right. This is the entrance of the old farm that we're talking about, and this is the sign that went up a while back saying kind of coming soon, that there'd be a distillery going on the property. That's the main entrance to the farm, and there's been a discussion with the applicant about as we move forward, you know, 52 has some challenges, and the state's talked to us about a lot of things about this property and access. But the sign went where the original driveway was, although when we get to the concept plan, that's not planned to be utilized in this project due to site restrictions on 52. But the sign was there, and that's where a lot of people saw the sign. And then, of course, our future land use map amendment signs went out in those same general locations. So again, that's on 52. We're heading back towards town. This is now, we're back on the town side looking east. So we're back towards the recycling business, and that's one of the challenges. The property would be on the left. And as that curve comes around on 52, we've got, again, site distance challenges, a little bit of elevation starting to happen, but the property then is to the left. This is on Old Lancaster Road, so we came back in closer to town. The property's on the left. The cars that you see at the bottom, that actually is a separate lot, and this is the farm. And then these applicants own a farm that sort of surrounds this piece of property that's back on the old Lancaster Road side that hits adjacent with this farm. And I'll show you that on the big map in a minute. And that's this farm. That's 80 Old Lancaster Road. That farm is actually owned by LMD Holdings. AFI 000 is the owner of the big farm, and LMD has an option on that property. This is off Letton Drive. So you go back in off Letton Drive, this small little industrial park or semi-industrial park. There's actually unplatted right-of-way in this location. So the street kind of bows around in a horseshoe fashion, but there's actually unplatted right-of-way that would provide access to the property, and is what on the concept plan the applicant will show you as their primary entrance in the first phase to get onto the property would be off this industrial park street, and there'd be a new street constructed back in here into the property. So that's in off Letton Drive. If you probably didn't go back there, but we put a zoning or future land use map sign up there too. And then this is Main Street, East Main Street. We're looking west at that point. That farm actually comes out and touches Main Street. A little piece of that touches Main Street, and that would be in this location. This is looking back the other direction. So this way, we're heading towards the terminus of Main Street. We're looking east, and the property would be to your right, or to your right is the farm right here. So jumping a little further, this is a zoomed out shot of the aerial of the property, and this is the future land use. But we'll zoom into, this is a little closer shot. So this farm at this point in time, well, let me go to this exhibit, it's probably better. This one's a better one to show. And then I'll roll through mine pretty quick here. So this is the property under consideration today for the future land use map amendment. So this is the recycling business. This is Kurt Singer's, Ghost Pike. This is Lancaster Road, there's the curve. This is Old Lancaster Road, this is Letton Drive. And this is the farm, this is one of the farms that's owned by the applicant. These are the ones that are under option, these properties. And as you can see, this property goes out and just little tag of it hits Main Street down here, although most of the developments being proposed will show you is kind of in this general location. But this farm just happens to go all the way and touch Main Street. And of course, I think one of the discussion points we've heard from a lot of neighbors relates to this new roadway that's being proposed through the state of Kentucky. And I think that's what generated a lot of debate or discussion. There's no debate really at this point because no one knows what's happening here. But this road alignment came from the state of Kentucky, and that's Main Street, and it shows the first leg of what would be called the East Side Bypass. I think it's been talked about for several years, and there's now a preliminary alignment that takes off somewhere in the Ghost Pike area. No one really knows how it works here, or I don't, but that road would come through here, hit Main Street at some point, and continue to the north. So the applicant showed that on their concept plan simply because it relates to access, it relates to their project, and they needed to plan for it. So, but again, short term, what the applicants are showing is a connection off Letton Drive, no access to 52 at all, even though their driveway's here, and it's something they'd like to see, but at this point, the road is not suitable for that. So what they're showing is an access off of this industrial park drive into the property, and of course, this would be a phased project over several years, if not a dozen or better. This alignment was shown simply because that's what the state has in the hopper right now. It's way down on the list, it's unfunded. It didn't rank high enough to even make the fundable list, but there is a road called the East Side Bypass on the state's highway list. It's got a project amount of $33 million, which I guess is probably for design and maybe some initial whatever. But that project would go from Ghost Pike all the way around to Lexington Avenue, and that's the first leg of it that shows it going to Main Street. The applicants showed that, although they have no desire actually to have that on their property. They're trying to plan around it, but their goal is to build a facility in this location, use this access, and talk to the state at some point about how we could improve some stuff in this area so they could tie in their visitor center. But if this comes through the property, they're planning for that as an intersection connection right in this general area. But their goal is to just start off small, a couple rick houses maybe, build this road into the property, and then expand into the distillery operation. I'll let them go over some of that. So with that, I'm going to jump back to the staff report real quick and just point out some preliminary stuff and then let you talk to the applicants here or talk with them. So again, on page 1 of the staff report, it's interesting to note the current flume category that they're making requests is right here is low density. So when you look at our future land use map, this is a snapshot of it. This is the whole map if you look at our whole community, or at least the Danville area. This is zoomed into this section, and what the applicants are asking for today, and it's important to note, today is not a zone change request. There's going to be a lot of things I'm sure mentioned that typically we tie into zone changes, talking about drainage or traffic and on and on and on. But typically what we're doing today is simply the applicants are making a request to change the future land use map from low density, which would be subdivisions, basically, single-family homes, to mixed-use employment, which would be more conducive to just to be upfront with you guys. If the Flume Amendment's successful, a zone change comes later, and the zoning category they need to build a distillery would be consistent with what we've done on the other side of town, would be industrial zoning and maybe a combination of commercial. So to do industrial or commercial zoning, they need a different Flume category to be in compliance with the comprehensive plan. So they've made application to change this property here to mixed-use employment, so that down the road, if a zone change comes in, it's consistent with the future land use map. Page 1 of the staff report shows an interesting zoning history, and I think I stuck the zoning map on here too. This is also interesting on the property. The property has multiple zonings already on it. We have residential on this little tag. We have agriculture. We have highway commercial on the property. Of course, we have industrial right across the street, and the farm is traditionally zoned agriculture. So the future land use map is all low density, but we actually have commercial zoning on the property, so it already has 3 zoning districts currently on the property, none of which would be conducive to a distillery operation into the future. But it's surprising to see the way the commercial kind of tags out there into this farm with really no way to access it. And then it's residential on the little tag up here along Main Street. And again, that's the big shot of the Flume, and that's the short. And future land use map, we all use the acronym or say the term Flume. We use it all the time, Flume, and people go, hey, what's that mean? I need to be careful and say it's future land use map, and Flume is together. And that's what they're asking for, is what we would say is a Flume amendment. And I'll go quicker here. Page 2 of your staff report, 3. We pulled some goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan, specifically general, economic, historic, transportation, and land use. Those goals and objectives we thought were appropriate for this actual discussion. Page 4 of your staff report is our protocol on how we use our Flume, how we amend our Flume. And then on page 5, I want to point something out in the middle of page 5 of your staff report. In our current comprehensive plan, chapter 9, we outline how the Flume is to be amended. And there's really 3 options you can choose. And it says at least one of this criteria has to be proved. So you can see the bolded statement in the middle that says a demonstrated overriding public benefit of proposed development. It says this may include a provision for a major public facility or amenity, the provision of a major source of employment or economic development asset that cannot be accommodated in a location consistent with the current Flume. So the applicants have filed this application under that criteria or that protocol, and then have written a very lengthy narrative that's on the next couple pages. That's all in italicized. You can see it there. And I'll let them get up and talk about that. But they're making a request for the Flume based on that criteria. And then the last thing I'm going to mention is on top of page 6. This is the text at the top. I just want to point out, again, they're making the request from low-density residential to mixed-use employment. And I want to make sure we read what mixed-use employment is. It says this category applies to a strategic mixed-use areas, mostly undeveloped today, that are located near designated industrial areas, employment centers, or industrial parks, and accessible from major transportation corridors. These areas are envisioned as predominantly larger-scale employment and business centers, supplemented by compatible retail services. It says the distribution of land among these various activities shall be addressed through specific zoning. Again, that would be later. However, primary activities in the areas may include low and medium-rise office complexes, environmental friendly manufacturing, and it says on large tracts, these uses should be encouraged to develop in a campus-like setting where quality architecture and generous connected open space to maximize value, promote visible quality, and encourage pedestrian activity between employment areas and supporting service uses such as retail, restaurants, and residential. So that's what mixed-use employment is. It's a new category that was added a year or so ago. So looking at your Flume, it's hard to see it there, but we have lots of different future land use categories, agriculture, moderate density, low density, high density, mixed use residential, mixed use employment, commercial, industrial, and public. So again, this property is shown as low density, which equates to single-family residential subdivisions. And that's what our future land use map is proposing for that area. And of course, we have lots of other flume categories that folks could choose from or predict or want to amend to. And all of those really relate to a zoning district in the future. So that's the challenge when development's coming into the community. If it's not in compliance with the future land use map, it needs to make an amendment to attempt to do that. And then later on, when an applicant decides to rezone, the development has to fall within the parameters of those future land use map categories and their designations. So with that, I'll sort of end with, we had staff concerns on page 8. And the staff concerns right below that future were fairly minor. They were project phasing, how access would work. And again, we're ahead of ourselves too. The zoning is not today, but it's things we've talked to the applicant about. And then of course, what our future zoning designations would be or could be is something would like to talk to the applicant about if this moves forward. Again, this is the concept plan that they turned in, just so you guys would see what they're talking about. But at this point, it's very conceptual. It's could change a lot. It's not a max build out in a short term. If anything, it would be a long-term project, and very similar to what we discussed and went through with the IJW project out on Lebanon Road. It's anticipated to just be a few rick houses initially, and over 10 or 12, 15 years, bottling, distillery, visitors, tasting, all that kind of stuff that ties in with a distillery on a large farm. So the applicants are here, their attorneys with them, some other folks. I'll be glad to answer any questions you all may have of me. But the applicants got a lot to go over. I think that narrative is pretty detailed, and they've submitted some other things that you guys may want to ask them about or let them present. And then, of course, there's several folks here that I think want to speak on this on both sides. But I'll be glad to answer any questions you all may have of the staff.
Questions for Steve? Hearing none, I think we're going to hear from the applicant.
Commissioners, good morning. Mr. Chairman, I'm Jody Lassiter with the Economic Development Partnership, and I wanted to lay the foundation for Luca Mariano's request by sharing 3 points that impacted the site selection for this project, as it did for the IJW Whiskey project, and really for any distillery project with which we have been working over the past several years. We are following the very same path as we did for the IJW project. So we have done this, and there's a precedent been set previously. So of the 3 points, first, why are we here? Our zoning ordinance, unfortunately, does not consider distilling operations to be agricultural operations. And any Kentuckian knows that distilling has been a part of Kentucky agriculture since Daniel Boone came through the Gap. I could make a case to you that a distillery is, in concept, no different than a milking operation at a dairy farm, nor is a rick house any different in philosophy than a curing barn on a tobacco farm that I grew up with. However, our zoning ordinance requires a distillery to seek a zone change from the current AR1 to operate in Boyle County. However, this project, particularly with the scope of the property that you see here, the 272 acres and change, this project will include grain cultivation, cattle pasturage, and feeding of stillage as major components of a sustainable agricultural operation. Second, why this location? As we shared with you for the IJW Whiskey project, a distillery operation in Boyle County will have to be within the city limits of one of the 3 cities, Danville, Junction, or Perryville, because they are wet. The unincorporated areas of Boyle County are dry. This property is one step ahead of the IJW property because it's already in the city limits. As you may recall, the IJW property was agricultural, and we had to annex it within the city to win the project. Also, most distillery operations seek larger acreage tracts, usually historic farms, and desire to have a historic home or structure on the property to be an iconic symbol of the distillery operations for the brand and for visitors. This property contains the historic William Crowe House, which is the oldest stone structure in Kentucky, built circa 1782. And I should note here that Mr. Viola has already made a significant financial investment to stabilize and preserve that structure. It had been seriously neglected over the course of many years, and the front facade, particularly the center portion of that facade, had collapsed prior to Mr. Viola's option. So I share these 2 points with you to explain to you that the scope of suitable distillery sites within Boyle County start to narrow very quickly as to where we can sustain distillery development. And distillery development is a primary target for our economic development strategic plan. Third, so what's the deal with this possible road corridor on the west side of the property? Whether that road is ever built is immaterial to our project, to the Luca Mariano project. It's not a factor to the distillery's location. Now, it's certainly going to benefit the distillery, and it's going to benefit the property if it ever happens. But at a minimum, Luca Mariano, and my due diligence in advising Luca Mariano, has to anticipate and plan for the possibility of its construction in the future, whenever that may be. After all, we are the Planning and Zoning Commission. So we're doing some good planning here, and the last thing that I would want to do, we would want to, Mr. Viola to do, is to build several structures in the pathway of that future construction and then have to raise them, relocate them, and rebuild them at significant expense. So there's really the 3 basic points that I wanted to make as your Economic Development Director as to why we are here today, why this site, and what's up with the road. And I hope that they give you a better insight as to why we are sustaining this project. It's a sustainable agricultural project. It's a historic preservation project. And it's also a project that's going to bring new jobs and investment to our community. So we fully support Luca Mariano's request. And I'd like to introduce the owner of Luca Mariano Distillery, Francesco Viola, and his attorney, Matt Froberger.
Morning.
Morning. Thank you for having us. This is a great opportunity for us, and we're very excited to be here. Yes.
Just introduce for the record what your name, please.
My name is Francesco Viola. Yep, thank you. So I started my distillery in 2010, and it's been a long time coming, and we've been searching for the perfect site for many years. We looked in Michigan, we looked in Tennessee, Nashville area, and we discovered Danville about 5-6 years ago, and I fell in love with Danville as soon as I came here the first time. And then the people, everyone here has been very hospitable, very great, and so we started looking for a piece of property a few years ago, and this is the development that we've set our hearts on. So we're really excited about it. We think that this can be very good for the community, very good for our business, and good for those that want to come and see something historic that we plan to preserve. So I can go into the details, or I can just open it up for questions if you'd like.
Questions?
Someone mentioned that some of this farm property is going to be maintained or retained for corn, I'm assuming, for agriculture. I want to see in like this one little park on 100 acres. Is that the intent?
Our intent is to keep the farm and its integrity untouched as much as possible. We only want to develop what's necessary for our business, for our distillery. We have, our concept is to show that the grains that we farm will then be used for our distillery. The stillage, the waste after we create our alcohol, our bourbon and rye whiskey, that stillage would then be to feed our livestock, and then that livestock would then feed all of us and give us, kind of tell that story. a sustainable farm story. So, and just to be clear, this plan is over potentially my lifetime. So show the grand scale of what we plan to do. It's a phased project. It's going to take many, many years to do this over time.
So what would be the first phase?
We would probably begin with the bottling facility and maybe continue the farm, and we'd add our livestock. And so we'd slowly start working with the bottling, the livestock, then maybe 1 or 2 rick houses, and then go from there.
Your estimation of employment?
When we'd start employing people?
When and how many?
Well, our project will just, distilleries as a nature don't have a lot of employees, but we plan to have more than what your typical distillery would have. My goal is to really landscape the grounds to be something special. We, the parts of Italy that my family comes from, they really do a fantastic job landscaping, and I want to bring some of that to here to Danville and make it something special where people come and can see, the landscaped grounds. So we'd have landscaping crews that would work for us full time. We would have the bottling facility. It takes quite a few people to bottle. We'd be doing that, and the current business I have, the other companies I have, we run 24 hours a day. So we would have crews that would potentially work 24 hours a day, and then we'd have the farming aspect of the livestock and the corn. So
What have you done to the grow house?
we stabilized it. It was in really bad condition, so we've stabilized it, and we've had our architects out there several times now to make sure that when the time comes, after we get the flume approved and after we get the zoning approved, then we're going to be able to then start construction on that and to begin to restore it. Yeah, and that's our goal.
What's the plan for the future use of the grow house?
We'd like it to be the focal point for our visitor center. So I'd like to turn it into a museum of sorts to kind of tell the story of Danville and the property, and maybe include my family story there as well. So.
Any other questions?
Mr. Viola, I don't know if you or your attorney were planning on speaking to the exact flume element of talking about a overriding public benefit. Was that a presentation that?
Well, sure, I can speak to that. I think Steve did a good job of including in your packet. Sorry, Matt Froberger. I'm general counsel of Mr. Viola's properties, including LMD Holdings and his other businesses. I think Steve did a good job of including in your packet all the relevant areas of the comprehensive plan that we're supposed to be working towards. And with the current low density category that this is, it doesn't fit with that comprehensive plan. Going over to the mixed use employment, which will allow for this sort of mixed use development, fits perfectly within those categories with the comprehensive plan. So bringing a distillery, bringing jobs, bringing capital improvement, maintaining the historical buildings, and while also keeping some farming on the property, to me, it's a no-brainer that's an overriding benefit to the community, and it's inarguable in my estimation.
Anything else y'all need to present? Okay. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
This being a public hearing, anyone in the audience like to speak in favor of this proposed flume, come to the mic, introduce yourself, name and address, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, Wayne Burke, 441 East Main. I live less than a 5-minute walk from your Old Crow home. Traffic. Bad now, what do you plan to do about it?
This is speaking in favor of...
Okay, I'm in favor of your facility, and I'm in favor of the economic development in Danville. And that's wonderful. But don't channel another 6,000 vehicles by my house. Thank you, gentlemen and ladies.
Anyone else like to speak in favor of this proposed Flume amendment? Hearing none?
Yeah.
You like to speak in favor of it, sir?
Yes, sir.
Come to the mic, please, introduce yourself, name and address.
Yes, sir. Hello, my name is Earl Robinson. I live on 80 Old Lancaster Road. Mr. Francisco acquired my property, and I think it's a great opportunity for Danville to grow. It's a nice plan. He has good intentions. I've been working for him for a year. He's a square deal guy, and if he says he's going to do something, he does it. And I think it's a good opportunity for the community. It's not a major overload of development, but it's a lot of employment, and it's going to be money coming into the county. We can always use more money, can't we? That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak in favor? Yes.
Well, I had several questions, but I'm not sure what is, do I put it in speaking in favor? Hi, I'm Robbie Henson. We have Pioneer Playhouse, which is right next to you all. And actually, I have to agree with Earl. I met Earl at the Marathon gas station, and Earl was like thumbs up about what you guys are about to do. And it sounds on the face of it just wonderful. You know, we do tourism at Pioneer Playhouse, and if there's a distillery next door, I couldn't imagine anything better. I guess I just had questions. Can I ask questions of Mr. Morano? Viola, I'm sorry. So this might be a 12-year plan to get to where you want to go? And you'll be doing livestock soon or in the short term? Will there be livestock? Yeah, that's going to be in the next couple of years. Livestock in the next couple of years. You know, there's a bicycle trail that abuts your land, so that's kind of a nice thing. And Jody, so I do have to say it's a wonderful thing. I guess I just would want in the phased process of getting to the wonderful, beautiful place that it also looks nice. And I am going to be honest, this is only the second time I was at a planning and zoning, and there was a planning and zoning I came to where there was a vote to move the land right across from us to industrial. And if anybody's been by there, it's basically the phasing to get to a nice look has become like a dirt strip mine and a landfill place. But I'm hoping that what you're not going to do in your phases is like sell your dirt and put landfill and everything. Okay. Well, welcome to our neighborhood, and it sounds like a beautiful plan. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
My name is Louise Dearborn. I live on Clifton Road. It's way past, about 2 miles past your property. We drive by there several times a day, and of course I love the agricultural part, so that's my positive. But because we drive by there so often, we see really poor road frontage. That rock fence has been rebuilt by the Dry Stone Conservancy, and I know you all try to keep it up, but not enough. It is such a beautiful, to use the Land Conservancy's term, viewscape, to see that that area. When you come around that corner, it's just trashed with weeds. Do you have plans to improve that?
Yes.
How often?
We're going to maintain it.
Mm-hmm.
Once we have all the improvements, we're going to maintain it consistently, weekly.
Because there's some trees that need to come out too that are going to destroy the rock fence. We're big on rock fences around here and have conserved our property down the road. So we would, your neighborhood would appreciate if you would keep that clear and presentable, because that is not pretty right now. Thanks.
Anyone else like to speak in favor? Yes.
Chris Hibbard with CHDH Properties, have some properties along Letton Drive. And, excuse me, part of the management of Central Seal Company, kind of there at the corner of Letton and Insulin, where the future industrial or primary entrance would be proposed. very much in favor and excited about, as much as anything, what I've seen for a while is a long overdue attention to commercial development on the east side of town, where we've kind of been pushed a lot of our development into, I'd say the southwestern third of the city limits, which has been all well and good because it's a lot easier to access and develop as it currently stands. I also certainly think that some expanded use and attention to the commercial side of the east side of Danville may allow for a little extra attention being given by the state to future road development and congestion issues that come with that side of the state. Being with Central Seal and the traffic and highway contractor industry, we have a lot of exposure to that, and I know that it is on the state's attention or mind, but not a big enough issue, and that maybe this is part of that potential development to get it a little higher on their list, to maybe even be considered some funding. But in general, like I said, very encouraged by the future use adjustments, and look forward to having you guys as a long-term neighbor.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in favor?
Hello, I'm William Robertson. I'm with Concrete Materials. We're located in Caldwell Stones Quarry here, right across the street from the job. And I'm being born and raised in Richmond. I'm on the industrial board over there. And so I kind of know how important it is when we get a nice project and what it means to the community. And so I just want to say I'm in favor of it. And I think Danville does a great job in that area. I kind of wish Richmond could pick up a little bit. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in favor?
I'm Jennifer Kirchner. I'm the director of the Convention and Visitors Bureau for Boyle County. Just to add on to what Robbie said, we I'm the chair member of the Danville-Boyle County Trails Alliance, and this area that we're talking about development, we targeted years ago as well. And just at the end of this month, we have last big segment of trail that's opening up that actually ends exactly on East Main, where this distillery would be. So this is actually in concert with a lot of future plans, a lot of environmentally friendly and using the resources there. So this is the perfect complement development to add on to Pioneer, to our trail system. We'll actually have a loop of about 5 miles connected around the city of Danville once this trail opens.
Anyone else like to speak in favor? Hearing none, anyone like to speak in opposition?
My name is David Roberts, and I am a East Main resident, and I think I speak on behalf of a lot of residents in East Main. We're just unclear as to the traffic pattern that you are proposing. I see a road coming out onto East Main. I wasn't really following what Steve was saying because this road I'm unfamiliar with. It's a future proposal, it sounds like. But are you going to, before this road happens, if it does, are you going to empty out onto East Main at all?
No access.
So there will be no access from East Main. That is what we want to hear. I also want to say I'm very excited. We need you in our neighborhood. We need this kind of place to promote East Main, especially that part of East Main. So we were just highly concerned about the traffic pattern adding to an already pre-existing problem. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else like to speak in opposition? Come to the mic, please. Save a little bit of time, if there's anyone else like to speak, let's go ahead and get in line. You don't have to wait until that person sits down. You can go ahead and get in line and be ready to speak right after she speaks. If there's anyone else like to speak in opposition?
I'm not sure it's opposition. Okay, I'm Linda Warren. I'm one of the property owners on the Regency Road area, 929 Regency Road. This property backs up, our house backs up to the property. And the only concern that I have is that we've lived there for several years and we enjoy the area as it is without housing and businesses behind us. The other concern that I would have is you were speaking about the landscaping and all. And the area on the Main Street area, several times I've had to come to code enforcement to ask them to cut those weeds down there. It's a small area down there. But my concern is only the property behind us, in consideration of the people who live on that side of the street, that you would consider not putting housing behind us or businesses directly behind us. Because as I said, we've grown used to that quiet, you know, the cows, the deers, you know, maybe the farm machinery. But to put the housing behind us or businesses behind us, I would be a little concerned about that. And then, as I said, the upkeep on the Main Street area where those weeds have grown up several times. And when I came and asked about it being cut, they said that they had notified the owner several times, but no response. So those are just my concerns. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak in opposition?
Good morning. My name's Donna Krager. I live at 16 Goggin on 52 on this end that goes to Lancaster. I'm in opposition to the distillery simply because I don't think that there has been enough information about the byproducts of all the distilleries that are coming into the area. And also, if you annex this into, across from exactly where I live is the Hammond's Farm, what's to keep you from going on and on and on until we end up in Lancaster with these distilleries that's coming in? Also, the traffic flow on 52. That is terrible. That is absolutely terrible. And as the gentleman stated about all the traffic that's coming into his area, I don't want it on 52 either, because if you all have been on that road, it's like I-75. And if you put a distillery on there, some people, that's hard for that to drive even sober, let alone give them a couple of drinks and then try to drive on there. So I'm opposed to it, and I'd like to see further investigation into it before you make a decision today. Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Diane Pendergraft. I live at the 180 Old Lancaster Road area. I actually have grown up there. It's where the rick houses are going to be built. It's going to be right beside my house. It's like, I'm not saying that I'm completely against it, but I do have some concerns. Like I said, I grew up there. I've stared at that farm a long time, and, you know, I currently live there. Like, for instance, a couple of weeks ago, they sprayed the field. My horse field also got it. So now she has no grazing grass. I know that that is leased out. Is that correct, to someone?
Yeah, it's leased out to someone.
Okay.
I don't own that property. I have an option to buy that property.
That's where you're wanting to buy and build, though, correct? But that's a concern to me as well, like I said, with everything going on. Still, you're planning to purchase it, correct?
Yeah, once everything's approved.
Okay, so once everything is approved, you plan to purchase that?
If where the project development is near your home, there won't be any spraying by a farmer if he leases it.
Right, so you won't spray like your corn and your,
Well, where the project is proposed is near your house, so there won't be farming there. It'll be our,
you'll have your rick houses right next to my house, right? Right, okay, and then the road, the street that they're talking about with Ghost Pike, that would be like right outside my door, basically. So, obviously I'm not too thrilled about those changes. and the traffic already, and the potholes in that area are already bad enough. Another question I had is, you spoke of the old house. How long are you planning on taking to repair that? I know.
Once everything's approved, then our plan is to begin installing
Shortly thereafter. What's the time frame on getting that ready? Just out of curiosity, getting it.
Well, my architects have already been there, so they've already mapped everything out that we need to do. So we just have to go through this process, and then at that point, we make a determination. Once we get the approvals,
It used to be a very beautiful place. It needs a lot of work now, yeah.
It'll be very beautiful again.
Okay. All right. I guess that's it.
Thank you.
Okay, I thought you were going to say something. Hi, I'm David Underwood Sweet. I live probably about 2 properties down from the proposed site of the distillery. And, it's 2875 Lancaster Road. Okay, and I'm not really opposed to the idea totally, but I have a lot of concerns. Traffic has been mentioned by many others. I'll just add my 2 cents there. The other is, I guess it relates to infrastructure, I guess. You know, water pressure, I would assume you would use a lot of water there. Our pressure is not the best out on Lancaster Road. I'd want assurances that it's not going to get worse because you're using gallons and gallons. I mean, I don't know if that's the case or not, but just that there would be a provision for that. And again, you talked about reusing your waste on the agricultural land. Is that correct? Okay, using it for cattle feed. Just concern about, are there any harmful industrial waste? If you're going to use land for agricultural use, there's a lot of concern about the use of pesticides these days. That does drain down into Clark's Run, which runs around through there. There have been cases where distilleries had spillages into nearby creeks that kind of killed most of the wildlife down through that way. And just, I'm concerned, there are concerns like that I think need to be addressed before the full thing goes through, so that we as neighbors have some concerns. Another concern I have, and I don't know if this is likely to happen or not, if that ends up, I guess a distillery is considered an industrial zone, is that correct? Okay, well, we're only 2 properties away from that. In a few years down the road, are we going to be living next to a factory of some kind? I don't know. You don't think so? I just don't want, we moved out that direction so we could be out in the country. And I don't want to, I don't know if there will be any noise pollution or light pollution or any of that type of thing, or smells. Might be nice, I don't know. Go outside and see what's cooking today. But there are concerns that I have that I think need to be addressed before the entire project has full approval. So that's my say. Thank you.
I just want to make clear, I'm not opposed or for, but I do want to give this to the commission. There was a gentleman who wrote a letter, and it was directed to the chairman, and I'll just pass that through. The nature of it feels like it's somewhat in opposition or concerns. He couldn't be here today, and I explained to him that we really need to come to the meeting, testify at the hearing, but he wanted to write a letter directed to you, and I said you guys would give it the weight you could when someone can't be here or submits a petition. I gave him that kind of our general protocol. So I'll just pass that down the table, and you guys can look at that.
Good morning. I'm Valerie Crawford. I live at 1005 Regency Road. The only question I have is, if this plan goes through, what are your plans for directly behind our property off of East Main Street? Right now, there's nothing there.
That's what we intend to keep it apart.
Keep it like it is. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Hearing no one else like to speak, we'll consider the hearing closed. The public hearing closed. This time, the commission is, the floor, the chair is open for a motion to either approve the request as presented or to deny the request as presented.
Make a motion to approve. Read that from the. I make a motion to approve the proposed future land use map amendment based upon the testimony and documents considered in this public hearing. Proposed flume amendment. This method directive to amend the flume is outlined in Chapter 9 comprehensive plan. Further request that this motion include the summary of evidence and testimony presented by the witnesses at this public hearing.
Have a motion. Approved.
Mr. Chairman, if I might jump in. Mr. Griffin, feel free to adopt or reject what I'm going to add to your motion, but you might add that you find that the applicant has demonstrated an overriding public benefit, especially regarding investments in developing the land, creating employment, revenue generation, green space preservation, supporting the trail system, and beautifying the area. And you could also make a finding that the Planning Commission finds that the original research, which supports the comprehensive plan, is still valid, particularly supporting the goals of attracting new manufacturing, economic drivers, and maintaining the agricultural area character of the area. If you agree with what I've said, then yes. Okay. Thank you, Jeff. Yeah.
Any other questions or discussion on the motion to approve? Hearing none, all in favor? Vote unanimous. Thank you all very much. Congratulations.
That's a couple items. Got some new business items. Go ahead.
Preservation of that.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you so much.
Good job. Hey, thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your job. Absolutely.
We got some new business items. We got to keep rolling here.
I'm sorry.
No, we're good.
If you're going to leave, please do so.
Yeah.
Steve, you staying? We have more business to conduct. Could you please exit the room if you plan on leaving? Have your conversation in the hall, please.
All righty.
Item H, Advisory Committee report. We have nothing, Steve.
No, sir.
Personnel Committee report, have not met.
Did not meet.
Budget Committee report.
Let's hold right there. Just quit no report. But we're going to need to have the. Can you guys hear?
Yeah.
Okay. We are going to need to have a budget committee meeting. I can't hear, but. All right, yeah, we're going to need a budget committee meeting real shortly. I want to report on one item that's kind of unique. We were in the clerk's office yesterday, and as you all know, we record plats and various documents every single month. The clerk notified us that there's a statewide fee increase on the horizon. It's not official, but it's planned to go in effect January 1 of this year. And it is a major increase in the recording fees that will happen in the clerk's office. Give an example, right now it costs $20 to record a plat. That fee would be going to $80 per plat. Yeah. So those are statewide proposal. They showed me the list. It's tentative. But the committee's got to meet one more time, but they said be prepared. These are probably going to happen January 1. If those fees increase at that level, we'd go from $36 to record a plat with land use and plat to $130 just on recording fees.
Where's this coming from again, Steve?
State of Kentucky through the clerk's office. It'd be going into effect in every county in the state. The list includes mortgages, deeds, marriage licenses, plats, land certificate. It's their whole host of fees that the clerk's office charges. They're doing an increase that they say is 30 years overdue. I don't know how that happens from the state department at the top, but we need to pass those fees on through, obviously. Our problem is we've got plats that we took today that we're going to record at some point in the future, and we took $36 for recording fees, and if we don't get those recorded by January 1, that's $130, which is more than we charge to review the plat. Our plat costs are just $105, and then we add recording fees, which makes it $141. We'd have to increase those by $130.
Is that an arbitrary decision on their part?
I have no
or-
idea. It's passed through. I mean, there's always been fees from the clerk's office. What we don't want to do is end up taking a loss on the plats, and we need to pass that through to the customers, and that needs to be reflected on our fee schedule. So the budget committee needs to get together probably in December. We need to get more clarification from the clerk's office on those fee changes, and then those need to be reflected on our applications and our fee schedule. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that. I just found out about that this week, and that relates to the budget committee.
Okay.
We'll get them together hopefully real soon. That's all I have on the budget.
In the meantime, if there's something we anticipate we might not get recorded by January.
We're going to try to get everything
can we let
recorded.
The customers know
Well, that's
that there may be
tricky.
additional-
That's tricky. We actually took an application, and they filed it and paid the proper fees, and then there's a recording fee going in the future. We could go back to them and say, hey, it's gone up $100 and some. More than likely, that'd be tough to justify a little bit. We're going to try to get the plats recorded that have come through, and the ones that start in on January, we hope we'll have the new fees allocated, and those just pass through to the customer. We're going to talk to surveyors and engineers about it too, real quick, so they know. That's all I had on that.
Any other new business?
The conference, that's the only thing. It's coming up a week from Friday. Couple planning commissioners are signed up. I don't think all of you guys are signed up. Jeff, I think I saw your name on the master list, and Terry's, and Ann signed up. You did sign up? Okay. Any of you all need us to sign you up? We did sign a few up. We signed Steve up too. We have your tickets in the office. It actually prints a ticket. You won't need it when you show up that day. There'll be a list. If you haven't signed up, we can sign you up, or you can get online and sign up. The agenda's looking good. It's a week from Friday, and got good folks, good topics, lots of good stuff. Hopefully you guys can all attend. Bad day for you?
No, I'm just saying, sign me up.
That's what Lisa will do. You just
Okay.
tell her after the meeting, we will sign you up, and we have the tickets in our office if we've signed you up, and if not, you do them online and it emails them to you. Just want to make sure you guys get a chance to go. It's going to be, and I've got the final agenda now, and they're over here. If you haven't seen it, the agenda now is pretty complete with a lot of different folks involved. So that's all I have.
Did we end up not having any costs for this, Steve, at all, or what?
We will have costs for the event planner, $1,500. There's no other costs at this time. Center's paid for the food and the room. There's 2 speakers that want rooms, and tourism is comping those. I think we might have 1 speaker that wants mileage reimbursement, and I would anticipate if they turned in an invoice, we'd pay for that.
Okay.
And I think he's coming from Kenton County. So that's fairly minor. But at this point, it's just the cost of Bluegrass Tomorrow at this point.
Well, Jody will volunteer to pay for any of that, so.
Yeah, we can get them to pay for the mileage. That'll work. But we've done what we can. Now, but what's interesting, yesterday we came up with a list of other stuff. We need some signage to get them around the building. We got some things to do. We've got gift bags. Tourism did those for all the speakers. There's 11 speakers coming. They handled all that. But we've got some little incidental things we have to do that might be some nickel and dime stuff.
Okay.
I've done what I can to pay for as little as possible at this
Okay.
point.
Just curious.
So that's it.
All right. Anything else? Good for the order. Hearing none. Motion to adjourn. Jim makes it. Second. Jeff seconds. All in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you all.